Reach 2, 3, 4 the mic. 2, 3, your skills when you're building that body so that you can 5, 6, 7, 8. Now stretch 2, 3 arms distance. One of these whack MCs. We want to show you style with the 95, 6, 7, 8. Now turn to the twist to the mix. 4, 1, niggas that think we trip and breathe. 2, 3, setbacks to your mind through style again and reach 2, 3, 4 the mic. 2, 3, your skills when you're building that body so that you can 5, 6, 7, 8. Now stretch 2, 3 arms distance. One of these whack MCs. We want to show you style in the 95, 6, 7, 8. Now turn to the twist of the mix. 4, 1, niggas that think we trip and breathe. 2, 3, setbacks to your mind through style. 3.
Yes, that's right. We're back. Riddlore, CVE, The House List. I'm Peter Agaston, the host and the producer of the show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much. This is my weekly podcast, and as you may know by now, or maybe not, for the whole month of August in the year 2017, I am going to be releasing or posting 2 conversations a week, 2 podcasts a week for the whole month. I'm making my editor and engineer CJ Stewart work overtime to deliver these incredibly captivating, compelling conversations with artists and people of the creative nature and music and so on that I admire, that I'm a fan of. And of course, today's episode is no exception. I hooked up with Riddlore, and we recorded this on the 4th of July in Carlsbad, California, just a little north of San Diego, California. So I was in California earlier in the month, and I was doing some work with the band that I work with in my booking agency, the Agaston Agency, and we had a show that very day at the 4th of July at the San Diego County Fair at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. Ivan and the Parasol, Hungarian rock band from Budapest. And in the daytime, I hooked up with Rid, and we recorded this conversation I'm about to share with you. And we talked about the history of CVE, the extremely influential LA underground hip-hop group, a revolutionary kind of political rap group from LA, from Los Angeles. Most notably affiliated with The Good Life, Project Blowed, Afterlife. If you're in that scene or you're a fan and collector, and there are definitely some very serious fans, and for a long time now, of the whole universe of Project Blowed, CVE are major players in that, in both style and approach, a relentless kind of stage show, and incredible MCs. With amazing style and flow and lyrics, and Rid, also the producer, one of the producers of the group. So, and has had a prolific solo career. So, we had a limited amount of time, and I wanted to try to get as much in, and I think we accomplished that. I think we had a pretty good conversation. So I want to plug the podcast just a little bit, and then we're going to get into this special convo with me and Riddlore, Ryman Riddler from CVE, Project Blow, the Good Brothers 2, if you remember that record, Afterlife. And But yes, if this is your first time tuning in, I gotta say this. This podcast is called The House List. It's by me, Peter Agaston. I'm the host and producer of the show. I self-produced the thing. It's very DIY. I flew myself to San Diego and then linked up with Rid. I want to send a shout out to Joel Bain, who let me crash at his house while I was in San Diego for a couple of days, and who actually brought me to the place. We recorded basically on the beach, and you'll hear, because there's a bunch of people around, but thankfully CJ is a very great engineer, and we compressed a lot of the audio so you can really get a crux of what we're trying to talk about. It's not too loud, you know what I'm saying? But the house list, yes, going back to it. Listen, if you listen to podcasts at all, or this is your very first time listening, I appreciate it. If you have friends or family that like hip-hop, I do a lot of hip-hop episodes. But it's not just about that. I speak to artists of all kinds and people in the industry, regardless of genre. Hip-hop is basically my foundation. It's kind of how I started in the music industry, if you will. And I have a lot of connections with a lot of these artists. Plus, I'm just a fan first and foremost, and I love stories of artists' careers. And CBE doesn't really get the due that they properly deserve. And I think the scope of music journalism, hip-hop journalism, if you will, at that, has changed and disintegrated largely. So I love being able to bring these stories to you guys. So if you listen on SoundCloud in particular, I want you to not just subscribe if you can, which I would appreciate, but if you have an account on SoundCloud, repost it on your page. If you're down to do that, it goes a long way. If you got friends and fans, or you're an artist yourself and you want to just help, or if you have worked with Rid on many of his solo albums. In fact, at the end of the show, I'm going to play this incredible track called State of the Union, which is from a record he put out in 2011 called The West Wing. So all I ask is that, yeah, you repost it, retweet it. I'm on Twitter at HouselessPod. So I just want to get that out there. It's important that we kind of keep this scene going, and then by me doing these conversations and sharing them with you, that's my contribution. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, I want to thank Rid for being a part of this. Thank you guys for tuning in. Of course, I say it again and again because I really mean it. So without further ado, we got all that stuff out of the way. Let's get right into my conversation with the one and only Riddlore, Chillin Villain Empire, CVE, Hip Hop Clan, Afterlife Project Blowed. But yes, the story is CVE, and really Rid's story, which is an amazing one and a very cool one. And you know what? One thing I want to do before I wrap, too, is that he did this album that, because I'm going to play something different at the end of the show, I wanted to plug this regardless. He went to Uganda and worked out there for, I think, several months in 2016. And at the end of last year, he released an album called Afro Mutations, which is an instrumental record that uses or samples and reworks African field recordings, and he did it while he was out there. Actually, I think he was recorded in 2015, released last year, so it's super limited physical cassette, but it's out there online. But it's Riddlore, Afro Mutation. So look for that. It's a really interesting, dope album. It's an instrumental album using field recordings from Africa, all over the country, and he did it while in Uganda. So amazing, very cool. Check it out. And now, check out my conversation with the one and only Rid. You guys had a record as a group. Like, I don't know if there might have been something that came out before this, and this is what I love to kind of start with or figure out, is the 12-inch.
Can you love a villain?
Yeah, well, Power to the Posse.
Yeah.
So those, yeah. So that was, but who was on the A side? Was someone that was
JB Nice.
Yeah. So he was part of the group.
Yeah, he was part of the group. Me and him are the founding members of the group.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So what was obviously like that? So that's like 87, 88, basically, right?
Yeah,
right.
That was 88 when we recorded that.
So this was like how did the group really identify with like LA at that point in time? Because you guys must have been like in high school or something, or teenagers at least. Right?
Yeah, that was our first year out of high school when we put out that
Nice.
record. But we did 2 demo albums while we were in high school that never came out, like just demos. Because we didn't know anything about being independent and putting it out yourself, but we recorded the demos and sent them to labels and stuff. And after doing that twice, we decided to just put it out ourselves.
So that record too was like your label essentially too.
Yeah,
right?
we did it ourselves.
Nice. Yeah.
The label was called Covert Records. I mean,
right.
And then the Covert Yo Dog and Covert, and then Covert
Yo Dog,
CVE.
Right.
Yeah, it was like those were like our 2 label ideas, was Yo Dog and Covert together.
So who were the members of the group then? Because obviously, I mean, besides the 2 you guys, like
Fish
it's evolved
was
a
already
little
in the group then.
Yeah.
Fish had just got in the group actually.
Right, cool.
Like, because we're like based in Venice.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So did you grow up there, or how?
I grew up in Venice.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't realize that.
And JB, he lived in Venice, but he went to Santa Monica High. I went to Venice High.
Oh, wow.
And we met on the beach, like battling each other. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
we had
wow.
a battle, and I left that battle telling my friend, like, man, I think I lost that battle. You know?
Right.
And it's like telling me, nah, you served him. But he told, when we saw each other again, he told me like the same story. He left the battle with his friend, like, I think I lost that one.
Wow,
And his
nice.
buddy was telling him, nah, you won, you know?
Wow. So then would you record in Venice too, or like what? How would it eventually? How would you guys then reconnect to actually start recording?
Well, we just ran into each other again. Like I was like after that, I was like, if I ever see this dude again, I'm gonna talk to him. I'm gonna say we can start a group. 'Cause I really like dug the way he raps.
Right.
And like the very next time I saw him, like I was on my way to this job program I was in, this youth job program thing, and I got off the bus like a stop too soon from my bus stop where I was supposed to get off, and I was like, I'll walk to the next bus stop.
Right.
I see him on the other side of the street walking with some friends, and like I'm about to holler at him. The Santa Monica police pull up on the side of me and fucking up against the wall. Like
my God.
he never even see me on the other side of the
way,
street.
really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I'm like get searched by the police and harassed, and like
Just because you were trying to go talk to this dude about
they don't even know what I was
Right,
doing. They just
right.
saw me there, and
right.
I didn't look like I should be where I was.
Right.
And then when they asked me where I'm from, and I said Venice, they didn't like Venice kids in Santa Monica either. So
Yeah, I mean, what is so what's Venice? Obviously, the Venice Beach of today is like a lot different from even 10 years ago. Like, so what was it like growing up there? What was it? Because it's such a particular part of LA that I think people, because of the media and like the beach part too, so many people associate it with like what they see like in movies and TV and shit like that. Like, what was it like actually growing up there?
well, back then they called the area that I lived in Ghost Town.
Really?
Yeah, and like because white people were, before the sun went down and the spooks came out, they were ghosts. They got out of there, So so but it's historically was a black neighborhood. My mother was born there in 1946. So it's, her father had a house there, but she didn't know that till she moved back as an adult, got her birth certificate, and saw that she used to live right in the same neighborhood we wound up back in. Her father was a Marine, so they moved around a lot. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So then, as a kid, though, was there any kind of music around that you would see firsthand in that part of town?
Well, you had the beach, during then, so all the music was there,
right, of course.
And there was, the Egyptian Lovers was dating a girl from my neighborhood, and for him to be able to come and be cool in the hood, he started DJing the parties at Oakwood Park, which was the neighborhood park, and that was the first place, I saw, DJing and that whole thing, and this was before he had any records out, and he was in Uncle Jam's Army, though.
Yeah, of course.
And that's what kind of. And then one of my friends got turntables after that, and we all started going to his house and learning how to DJ, and that's where I started off DJing, 83, 84.
So were you doing the electro type of stuff that Egyptian Lover was, and Uncle Jam's Army, of course, were doing at that time, or where were you going with? actually DJing?
It was a mix then of it.
Right.
You mix that and hip hop and
course.
like the whatever the R&B and pop
Right.
music was. It was just like dance music kind of.
Right.
Then you might break it down for a while and play some, rap stuff like. But nobody in the West Coast really spun hip hop until Public Enemy, which bridged that gap between bringing that like hype sound. That's when DJs really could be free to play hip hop in clubs. But when we made mixtapes and stuff, it was all Run DMC and
it was more
and all of the real rap stuff on on a lot of the tapes. But when it came to DJing parties,
it's
it was
totally
more
different.
more of the dance music.
Right. It's interesting too because I was trying to figure out a way as a producer, like the like sort of the style of production from that first record from '88 from Power to Posse to like how it's went through a couple of phases like through the '90s and then later you always had this kind of really great like approach to hard like drum machine and synth kind of patterns and stuff too, which I think like informed a lot of the music of CBE too, where it's like it opens this space for like this style of freestyle and like styling, which was became like a big facet to I guess to those early records too. Like when you were, I mean, obviously this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but as a producer, like when you started making beats and stuff, you're obviously taking some of that with you too, right? Like how long later would it be until you started doing the records? Because did you guys produce this too?
We didn't do all the production. We did the drum programming, but we had somebody else. And JB came up with the melody line, and we played it. Then we had somebody else replay it, But we did actually produce it. Yeah, we produced it because it was our ideas of what we made in our limited capacity, and had somebody else come and work with us to polish it up.
Yeah, for sure. Because you've produced a lot since. I mean, obviously through the course of your career. I mean, you did.
Then all I had was a drum machine, though, so I didn't really have anything else. When this guy Ebo got into our group, which was in like 1989.
Okay.
That's when I first learned how to use a sampler. He had a Mirage, like that Mirage keyboard sampler, and we had the drum machine. He had the Mirage. He knew how to MIDI everything up, so he taught me how to use MIDI and how to sample. And from there, like, I started. That's when I really got into producing and learning how to use everything.
So, would you? I know you guys kind of shared the duties a little bit, but on those, like that demo, like for example, like those demo records that you guys did, that was just more like kind of that early era too, where you're just kind of, it's piecemeal basically, right? Like you're just piecemeal together.
The first demo that we did, it was this kid named Brian. I don't remember his last name, but he lived in Brentwood, kind of rich white kid, and he had like
equipment. He had some equipment.
Yeah. Right. And he was trying to get into rap production and stuff. But he's a high school kid too. He knew how to play. No, his name was Dean Benedictus. That's his name.
Oh, wow.
Dean Benedictus, and he knew how to play the keyboards and stuff and programs. So we worked with him, and he programmed the stuff on our first demo. And we went in this studio called Mad Dog Studio that was in Venice at the time.
That was just like the neighborhood studio of Venice,
it was a neighborhood studio.
Right.
Like they only had rock bands in there. Like we're the first rap group to ever go in there and do anything.
How did they handle that? Like could they? Because that's like the era too when people would. When the hip-hop groups or rap groups would go into studios and be like, okay, well, I have a couple of records I want to loop up, and like have the engineer like loop up a record or two. Like, did you guys go in there like prepared to and know like where you were going with this?
The first time we didn't, but we learned a lot. And on that Can You Love a Villain, it was the same engineer that did our first demo. The second demo, we tried this other studio in Santa Monica, and then we had our DJ spinning the loops live. There was no you
did the record live.
Yeah, we did just the tracks, like the beats, like with live spinning of the loops. We had 2 DJs in our group and 4 turntables, and it was like live loops back.
Who were the
forth,
DJs then?
our DJs was Treacherous Kid Chaos, TKC.
Okay.
Was one of the DJs' name. And the other DJ, Fonzo. I can't remember what his name was then.
Did you rock shows like that too?
We never rocked shows like that. We were kids. Like
Yeah,
we were all just like kids. We thought that's how everybody else do it. We didn't know about samplers at the time.
Right.
So we went in there and like spun it back and forth live loops.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, you got to make it work somehow, right? Like, yeah.
And then layered it, like you know, yeah.
Oh, so you would do like a track and then like
layered some stuff over the top of it after we got the first loops down.
Right. Wow. So you just kind of existed in your own kind of world as this group, right? Because this is all pre, you know, there's so much association, of course, with like Project Blowed and like there's a universe of artists around it and stuff. But obviously, they all start somewhere, and like you kind of find one another. Like this is all before
80. This was like 85.
Wow.
Our first demo. We started the group in 84.
Right.
And the second. Then we did the first demo like the next year. Then one the year after that. Then we did the next one in like 88.
Amazing. Yeah, and LA was just, it's such a fascinating time too for music in LA because hip hop was not like really in any kind of, just even on a national level, really. It just wasn't like on the forefront of anyone's mind, really, like as far as like.
No, everybody thought it was a fad and would play out then.
Yeah, and radio wouldn't accept it, and just all types of limitations were involved. So.
Well, luckily we had K-Day here, so we had the first radio to accept it.
Right.
And
so did K-Day eventually play the CBE stuff too?
Well, they played it, our record once, just on that thing they had where like they would play new releases and call in and whether you like it or not thing. But no, we never got any real radio play.
Right. But for what it's worth, though, I mean, obviously Greg Mack did was instrumental in like exposing just that city to so many records too.
Yeah, like he's like the reason why I think a lot of us are into hip hop or got into it because there was such a wide variety of it that you hear on K-Day, like you know, and like people from New York would come to LA and be shocked like that we had so much hip hop on the radio back then.
Yeah, I remember when Greg Mack, he lived in Humboldt for a while when I was living up there, and he. For the period of time, because I think he went on to do some other satellite radio stuff in different places, like in the early 2000s, and for a while he was either living there, but he was doing a lot of shows, bringing a lot of shows to Humboldt too, and it was like this period of time, a classic period of time when he would bring a lot of these great like LA and like California acts in general, so like Cypress Hill and Too Short and like Tone Loc and he just always, and like he'd do these like live broadcasts, and I mean, you got to give the guy credit. I mean, he's definitely like always try to push, bring people to the music and push the music and stuff. So, yeah, but that's that like too also sort of represents like in a way like the major label kind of, or the record label world of that industry too. Like when I think of the history of CBE, which is something I'm really fascinated with, so I want to get more into like how it's because it really personifies a certain LA underground too, that I guess in the 80s but it wasn't like fully formed yet, right? Like it wasn't really until like maybe the early to mid 90s, right?
Yeah, after the Good Life started is when we started getting our name out there more. We used the Good Life kind of as that platform to kind of build our name more.
Right. How did you find it?
We didn't find it. Like we did this album called Underground Radio, another like kind of compilation with Arcane Blaze, who him and his mother started the Good Life, and prior to the Good Life we had made this album.
Right.
So when he started the Good Life, the name of the night was Underground Radio, named after this album.
Oh, nice.
And it was kind of like us broadcasting this Underground Radio live now out of this place, you know, with some of the same groups that were on the album. We're the only people there to start with. Then it branched out, and
so at the very beginning, yeah. So because obviously a lot of people now, you had to be there to really like go there and stuff. And there's some great bootleg tapes that circulated like through the over the years too. But I mean, it's just one of those like kind of windows of time that exist for a certain period of time. But like, what was it when Because it was also a cafe too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people associate me with it as a music venue.
Yeah,
but
it was a vegetarian cafe, but like at the same time, it was a conscious movement going on, and we had this Arcane Blaze, the one who started it, and all of us did this meeting like every Wednesday night called ABCs, which is African Brothers Collective. Like, and it like a lot of people would come. It started off as a small group, and it grew the same way the Good Life later did, and like it was one of the guys who was a regular at the meetings who knew Micah 9 and AC and brought them to the African Brothers Collective meetings prior to them going to the Good Life. And from them knowing us and being there is how they got introduced to the Good Life along with us. Like, it just happened to be the special time where people were thinking alike. And like,
so what were the meetings like? Like, what were, like, was there any music involved at all, or was it
no music involved in the meetings?
Right.
It was all political, social, dealing with just being a young black man in America, and the struggle and how we identify with it. And then we were doing a lot of security, like for the African marketplace and things like
cool.
that, and like building like it was people like Khalid Muhammad who came to the meetings that we were doing.
Would he speak?
Yeah, he came. He would speak, like, because this thing, it was growing so big. We had a few like professors come to the meetings and stuff just because they were hearing about it. Most of the guys there, because JB from my group was going to UCLA at the time, and it was like a lot of the guys were from UCLA going, and some from Cal State Northridge out in the valley, and like them brothers just from off the streets and Watts, and like everywhere started coming, and it made this like kind of, and from that it branched off into a lot of different things. Like some of these guys are the same guys who's from the ABCs, went off with Jim Brown's organization, American, and they were the ones who were at the foundation of the Truce. Yeah. Like, and we used to all, and that happened during the riots, and we used to all go marching in all of the projects, because some of the core group guys from the ABCs were from the projects in Watt, from the Nickerson Gardens and from the Jordan Downs. So we started this collaboration between these two, and they're Bloods and Crips, different rivals, and the truce they're held because of this foundation that was laid long before the truce from this branch off the ABCs, going there marching and building and having these meetings with the people from the gangs and trying to get them to, get over it, and how can they get past some of the stuff that happened in the past. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible in itself, too, that it could, and that's just like grassroots activism at its best, too, to sort of start as a humble thing, like a small group that could then resonate not only, in a social level, on a local level, and then, of course, on a musical level, too, because then, like, how long would it be until the Good Life would spawn out of that? I mean, it's pretty much
when the Good Life first started, the ABCs was still kind of going on. It was like we were still having our meetings, and it was kind of towards the end of that ABC movement. But like, during that time, from going to the ABCs, I met Micah 9 and AC because they came to a couple meetings and everything, and we started kind of hanging out, and I produced a track for AC back then, like before, like prior to the Good Life, and we just started hanging out together.
This is when he had the debut album.
It was before that,
right. Of course.
Before there was a Freestyle Fellowship.
Right. What was that song? Can you remember?
I don't even remember it.
So you guys had just got to talking, and you were like, "Yeah, I make music too," and like, we should do some music.
I'd actually met Micah 9 once before that. Around the same time, we were working on that Power to the Posse and Can You Love a Villain? Because the guy who studio we were like doing the pre-production in and working in was this guy named Greedy Greg, and you hear like DJ Quick mention his name in that song tonight, Greedy Greg, like, and he was behind. I can't think of his label. Outburst Records was his label, with YNV and South Central Cartel, something like. And we knew him. Like, we met him, and we would go to his house and hang out and work on music there. And I met Tone Loc there because him and Tone Loc were cousins. And me and Tone Loc started hanging out a little bit, and I went to one of Tone Loc's shows, and we went out behind this club, the Total Experience, that used to be in Lamert on Crenshaw.
Okay, interesting.
and we were behind the club and like in a cipher, and Micah 9 walked up, and Tone Loc introduced me to Micah 9 because he knew him too, and that's like the first time I met Micah 9, and we ciphered that night, and I never saw him again until at the ABCs, and that was a few years later, like 2-3 years later.
Right. That's a crazy connection too. That would be so like just by chance a lot of the time too.
Yeah.
And that Tone Loc of all people too would connect you guys at just by chance after a show. Yeah. So wow, that's incredible. So what? Just going back to the ABCs too. So how did was there any kind of lineage of roles? Like, was there any like did people assume roles, or was it like a free form kind of platform for like just conversational? Like, how would a meeting run?
Free form for conversation. Like, people was coming there. Like, once it started, it was like Nation of Islam was there, All African People Revolutionary Party was there. It was people from the New African Panthers there.
Yeah.
It was people from US organization there. Like, everybody was there. Like, and it was just like conversation about everything in life. There was no structure to the conversation or anything. It was just like, it started off probably 12 guys in a room and ended up being like 40 guys like in a room, just like in the living room, just talking. And you know, sometimes it would get heated and almost fights, you know, but it would always turn out all right.
Yeah, I mean, just that dialogue too, especially at that time. This is the late 80s, early 90s, right? Or?
Yeah, this was still in the 80s because the Good Life started in 89.
So this is like Reagan era, like Los Angeles too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It started in 88 and went to from like 88 to 90. It was like the time.
And you were making music during this time too, right?
Yeah. Because some of us did music, like Arcane Blaze. He was one of the people who would host the meetings at his apartment some nights, and he had a little studio there, and it was a couple other guys who did music too. So music was a part of it, but not the meetings. Outside of that, we got together and did music.
Yeah, they exist in different worlds too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and Ola, who was one of the Earthquake brothers who produced on the first album, he was a part of the ABCs also too, and he was going to UCLA at the time.
So yeah, still though, a lot of early connections are kind of made there too, like early music connections that sort of cross over into in both worlds, like sort of exists in two different places too. So at what point did you meet LA Cool? Because I know that you guys have been like collaborators over the years too, and
we met at the Good Life actually.
Yeah, cool.
Yes, from when they started coming to the Good Life, they became Hip Hop Clan quickly became regulars there.
Right.
Fish, it was really Fish and Rifleman who kind of got close and hooked it up first and started like and did like Fuck a Cop and
classic, absolutely classic.
Did a few songs together. Then after that, we just started doing a lot of like cross collaborations.
So that song it's so amazing how that still is more prevalent. I mean, you can put that song is still meaningful, no question, to this very day. You know, it's just like was one of his like early like kind of statements too as a group. Yeah, Fuck a Cop. I saw Bus Driver did a show, or we did a show together in New York not long ago, and he did like a kind of like a interpolation of that in like a break, and sort of like a breakdown in a song. And I might have been the only person in the audience that really got it. Like, I mean, not that the meaning, everyone got the meaning, but they got the reference too. Was that shit kind of gave me like a chill because I love that fucking song too.
Yeah.
But yeah, because CVE and Hip Hop Clan were always kind of like sort of really close together as groups, right?
Yeah. I think CV we're probably more political, but they were still like, you know, because that was our whole thing from when we started. I mean, it wasn't like a attempt to be political, but when it came to rapping, that's where I naturally went with it. Like we pre-NWA, we wrote a rhyme that was gangster, you know, and thought about it and said, if we put this out, you know, what would this make us really, you know, like, and really thought about it, and that wasn't the road to take. Like, I was gangbanging when I got into music, and I didn't see it as a way out to start with, but when stuff was starting to get to a level where it was either I make a decision to be a gangster for life or do something different,
right.
I saw music as a good alternative to it, as a viable alternative.
And you've been doing it, ever since. I mean, you've been creating and releasing stuff, consistently since that time too, right? Yeah. So how does if you can remember, because you obviously, since you were at the very beginning of the whole kind of crossroads of music at the Good Life, was there a conscious decision of, like, where did Project Blow fit into that? Because this is obviously a byproduct of that too, of the Good Life too, right? Of the cafe.
Yeah. When Project Blow, just like the Underground Radio, was the name of an album first, before it was a place, and then when the Good Life just got there were some problems between us being there and B-Hall running it, and so we decided to move on to another spot. And
what was that?
Project Blow in
was
Leimert.
The location, right?
Yeah, we moved to Leimert to Project Blow from the Good Life.
So how would you describe that place?
The Chaos Network. It was a cool place. I met Ben because, my 23rd birthday, I rented that place and had my birthday party there. And Ben seemed like a really cool guy, so, yeah.
It was the corner? Is the place that's on the corner?
Yeah, it's right on the corner, Chaos Network.
Yes.
43, 43, and 4333, both addresses, because it's 2 doors.
Oh, that's what the numbers signify.
Different addresses,
right? Yeah, because
same place.
I can't tell you how many people probably over the years stared at the album cover of Project Blow or heard it in someone, AC Alone, I think, said it in a couple of songs too, where that list of numbers was there and probably mystified a lot.
And then
of
the Project Blow Sector 21310.
Yes.
Also the zip code,
right?
Area codes for that's out here.
And then how long did that physically exist there, as far as like a thing? Because it no longer is.
It's no longer Project Blow, but it from 1994 up until I think 2000. I'm not sure when it ended, because I moved away and it was still going on. When I left, it was and moved to Paris. It was 2008 and it was still going on. I think it went to 2010 or 12 or somewhere around there before it finally.
Did the B-Boy Kingdom, which was a thing that Jace Move did, if I'm not mistaken. Do you remember this?
I remember B-Boy Kingdom. It was ran out of the living room of my house.
Was it? I didn't know that. It was the mail order.
Shack.
The mail order thing, right?
CV Shack, yeah.
Damn, I didn't know that, man. I definitely purchased some tapes and stuff from him back in the day. So that was run. You guys did that together, or he lived there for a while. He was one of my roommates for a while at the Shack, and we were doing that, and he started B-Boy Kingdom. But yeah, a lot of the product was our stuff. So we were involved in it. We were a part of B-Boy Kingdom. It was like a umbrella group for his publishing. For his promotional company and stuff that he was doing, and because they did more than it was kind of like a multifaceted thing, right?
It's promotions, distribution, and
because there's some classic. That's where a lot of those now very rare underground tapes from back then. A lot of people could get them through that.
Order it through B-Boy Kingdom.
So they all sat in boxes in your living room. That's such
it was a lot of it was the stuff we ordered, or then stuff that we got. Fish rented alongside with them a lot of it. And we the first J5 single. We distributed that a lot.
Oh, no way. Yeah,
we got that all over.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, because that did a lot too. There's so much output from that sort of world of artists and stuff too. Because I don't think it doesn't really. People might not really realize it too, but just the kind of influence that just something like that, just helping distribute those artists that otherwise didn't have distribution, and you had to be kind of you had to seek it out, like anyone that lived outside of LA, but they would circulate the same way that people would trade tapes, dubs on the early internet, which I think CBE definitely was had a huge cult following from that.
Yeah.
Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I agree to that. Although I wasn't even into it then yet and didn't know much about it, but we'd start like hearing about, kids in Germany or in France or wherever that are listening to our stuff and like it. And we didn't even know how it got out there because we hadn't even put most of that stuff out that was out there.
Right.
But later we found out that it was OD that was like, that was the leak.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yes. Wow. Okay. Yeah, because in a way, I mean, it got probably to places that otherwise you wouldn't be able to
places
buy
where
it.
it never wouldn't have gotten. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it. That's how I came up on a lot of it too. I mean, and this is like in '95 was when I was getting a lot of those dubs and searching them, trading tapes with people, and. The Blowed stuff was because there were so many artists, such a wide, I mean, from all the groups too. You could, and everyone had tons of demos, and it was just like an underground world you could really tap into with so much material too. What was what was your connection? I mean, this is just another facet, another group that was of that time, but that I don't think really gets a lot of like. Maybe credit, but it's First Brigade. What's your? How do you remember that group?
I mean, they were dope. I met Bombay before I met anybody else actually in that group, or before I met AC. I had already met Micah 9, but when I met Bombay, me and him were both going to Santa Monica College, and like we were like ciphering there together, and I thought it was really dope. And I didn't see him again until The Good Life.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. There was a lot of situations like that where a dope MC you run into somewhere that you just may have crossed paths with, and we all ended up at The Good Life in the same place. But they did have a connection to the fellowship and to Micah 9 and AC before the fellowship, just as all his friends. But I grew up so far west in Venice, I was stranded. I didn't know LA hip hop.
Right. Yeah, I know, because it's just a world in itself. Did you have any contemporaries in Venice? Like, were there other people?
I had some contemporaries. There are two brothers named William Earl Jones and Jimmy Jones.
Okay.
And when you hear Ahmad say 4th Avenue Joneses, those are his older cousins.
No way. Okay, got you. Okay.
And they were my OGs. They're Crips from my neighborhood, but they were fucking the funniest dudes in the neighborhood, and they freestyle. And that's how I started freestyling, from hearing them freestyle.
Wow. That's incredible too. Because I mean, that's the thing too. I think I always associate you with being such a pioneer of freestyling in LA, like of that, and that played such an important role. See, I can only be a fan and a bystander because I wasn't there regionally because I grew up in Virginia, so I didn't get a chance to be. I only had the tapes, but I mean, there's no doubt that obviously like freestyling was in styling too, and in improvising, as well as like, the stuff that came from the Watts Prophets and stuff like that. It's all like a part of this vernacular too. So that those guys were the people that kind of not put you on, but were you were. I would say
kind of put me on because they exposed me to the technique to like being at a party and grabbing the mic and rapping and freestyling. Although their rhymes were very simple and funny though, because they were comedians, like natural comedians, and like so it like gave me like a foundation of seeing what to do. Like although like the way we styled was much more advanced when we got into freestyling and started doing it because we're a younger generation than them though. Like
and you take it to a next level, of course. Because I mean, how like back then or even now, I mean, how do you like approach when it was about style? Because it was all about like that was just such a big part of the puzzle too, was having a definitive style, like as an MC, I guess, right? Like, how do you, like, I don't know if maybe it's a little vague in the point I'm trying to make, but do you kind of know where I'm coming from, at least, like, as far as this kind of hyper-specific style of freestyling, which is it's a very LA thing, I think, and it's a very much like a Project Blowed thing, which would, I think, inspire a lot of people outside of that world, but is very unique just to that, like, just because you were really there at the very beginning of it. Like, how do you remember that time and that particular thing, because it wasn't like battling people, it was more stylistically.
Well, out in the parking lot and outside it was battles, and inside there were battles too, but more ideological battles.
Right, okay.
Philosophical battles, not style battles inside, because unless it was an outsider coming in who wanted to test. But with different. Each other, we was more just trying to, like a musician, like your phrasing, your original voice and phrasing and concepts, and putting that to the test, not just in there battling each other. We did that out in the streets with other MCs, and
right.
There was more of like seeing who could do the best song, who get the biggest blow up of the night.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's the way that battling, quote unquote battling, exists today. It's just this weird kind of mutation of it, where it's hyper competitive and but for seemingly all the wrong reasons and stuff too, where it's just more like a sport. It's become like UFC or something like that. Yeah. It's just over the top competition.
Like WWF.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even more so. Yeah, because it's kind of because that's an even better analogy, because it's so very little of it is actually improvised.
Yeah.
It's not testing how quickly you can think and be creative. Even and definitely not on any kind of philosophical level.
Yeah, it's no thinking on your feet and being in the moment. It's writing all these bars and memorizing and then doing performance art.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So it's professional wrestling. Yeah. So obviously the fellowship plays a giant role in all that too. Do you remember how did that change? Did their those two albums that the first, of course, To Whom It May Concern, and then the second, Inner City Griots, did that affect what was happening at Project Bloat, or at the Good Life rather?
Well, that was Good Life.
Good Life era.
Yeah, it did, because after that came out, you saw more. It made it. I can say it had good and bad consequences, because it made it more trendy and popular on that level, and it had A&Rs coming in and people from the industry, and a lot of them would come in and try to break groups up or take a person from a group, you're good, you should, not really trying to develop or keep what's going, but take away from it. So that was the negative, but the good thing about it is that it exposed everybody there to the world, kind of gave a platform for the whole place, for everybody to get their music out further, and it, widen the base of people who hear it.
Yeah, because it seemed like at a moment too, there's a lot of those artists started getting major label deals and offers and stuff. Obviously, I think Micah 9 had for a while he had a deal. I think this is all in the early '90s, and then AC, of course, had the Capitol deal, and T-Love's group.
Yeah, Urban Prop had a deal. Yeah.
They were a pretty amazing group too, right?
Yeah.
That never really got to truly see the light of outside of Los Angeles. I don't think they ever really even released an album, right?
No, they
Urban
didn't.
Prop.
I know they recorded it, but I think it just got lost in the in the label when everything went south. I think it just got shelved.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Yeah.
But you were able to. You did a song. Actually, you were on AC's album kind of twice, right? You did. Did you produce a Rhythm Meticulous?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Because
I think it was credited as CVE, but you did the production.
We do, because on CV Beats we just say CV Beats on stuff we produced back then. Manfish, we didn't really.
And you were both
individual credit for it.
Yeah.
So me and them both did a lot of the beats.
Right. Yeah. Because that's an amazing song and a true highlight on that album. Do you just remember doing that? Where you guys were at, or when you even made that?
He was actually, I think, already doing a promo tour, or either he was doing a promo tour, or he went to visit his family out of town, I think he was in Kansas City, where his family's from.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I think he was out there during the time when I made the beat, but he told me he was looking for some stuff, and I was working with a few ideas. Then I made it, he heard it, then I made some changes to it based on some things that he requested, and we sat and kind of revamped it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great track. And then when the video, I think
It's based on that Salt and Pepper song, It's Alright, the sample from it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta compare the two. Yeah, because I definitely haven't listened to that Salt and Pepper song in a lot longer than the AC one. I'll go back to that.
Those are the drums for it.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's dope. Interesting. Yeah, now I'm thinking of that. Because then you guys they used when Mic Check, obviously Mic Check was like a big single they pushed pretty hard, like when that first came out. But in the video, if you remember, I think there was like the song that was on Project Blow.
Yeah, Calisthenics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was actually just like a CV song.
Yeah,
right?
CV song. Yeah.
What's the story with that song? Yeah, not to just like drill you about every specific song, but I mean those are just kind of like the first time that people on a broad scale saw a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I made the beat, and then I went on tour with AC during the All Balls Don't Bounce album.
Oh, really?
And Fish recorded the song while I was gone. Like he wrote him and Chewers brainstorming together, and he came up with that. Yeah. So,
nice.
Yeah.
So what was that when you were touring with him? You were backing him up?
Yeah.
Were you doing songs too?
No, I wasn't really doing any songs. I was just like kind of hyping them.
Yeah, that's dope because that was like probably his as a solo act to be. He was getting out like really out there on a national level, right? Like,
yeah. And at the end of the show, we would all freestyle, though. We would do some freestyles at the end.
Who would DJ back then for him? Was it?
Back then, Kilo was his DJ.
Nice. Yeah. Classic, man. Yeah. It's just such a I mean to look back because even then it just seems like another era too.
And on the Headaches and Woes on that album, Fish did the drums on that.
Right.
That was Fish programmed the drums on that.
So one of you would do one thing, the other person might step in with another idea. And
yeah, but that was Fish and Big Pun that did that track together.
Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah, had it.
Yeah, because there was another Punisher. Right?
Yeah, Punisher.
Yeah. What was his story?
He's a dude from the neighborhood that grew up with Mike and I and AC and Jupiter. They all grew up in the jungles together.
Right, because that's actually right. The jungles are right by where
the Good Life.
Yeah,
far from the Good Life.
Yeah, I've driven through that a couple of times, and it's right in that, not far at all. Right. Yeah. And what about, obviously with the Project Blow, there was like, with the compilation rather, is like also another like seminal introduction to like, of all these different individual artists like to the world too. And then you guys had a pretty amazing song there too with Narcolepsy, right?
Yeah.
Did you do this one or?
Me and Fish both did Narcolepsy, and it was one of them crazy ones because it's like I did some synth stuff on it and like turned everything off. Fish came back, turned it on to work on it, and he didn't reload the same patches I had, and it like some stuff different, like some drum stuff that was music, and it like changed it, but it was still dope. And then he added some stuff to it, and I liked it the way it turned out in the end. So
interesting.
We just, rode with it.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So then, at what point in time does the afterlife like come in? Because that becomes your own sort of movement too, right?
Yeah.
What would you identify that as?
The afterlife kind of started as the name came about. Like when the Good Life was over, we would all like go somewhere together sometime if it was something else popping, and we say, "But we're just gonna go to the afterlife." Like,
nice.
And we call whatever we did after the Good Life the afterlife, and then a crew of us started kind of calling ourselves the afterlife when the Good Life kind of got political, and we came up with our own kind of like manifesto for how we wanted to see the Good Life going, and this is what caused kind of that riff, which later led to us leaving to go to Project Blow. Kind of
interesting. So what back then? What was the drive of that, like conceptually, the afterlife? Like, how did it set you apart from what was going on there at the Good Life?
It really didn't set us apart from what was going on at the Good Life. It was kind of I guess it was like between more of us and B Hall, between her vision of it and us as the artists were their vision of it.
Yeah.
And she thought really we shouldn't have a voice in how it went, but like we were like, we're the reason why people are coming. So
of course,
kind of
classic back and forth with the venue.
So we ended up having to go. Yeah.
Because I mean, it would eventually people would like sort of identify it as a label, really, like as a record label in a way, right?
Yeah, we turned it into kind of a label later, like with some heads, we turned it into a label, and whatever we were kind of doing, it was like Afterlife, just as a group. So we named the label that because most of us who were involved with the label were the same people who were at the foundation of the Afterlife.
Right. Because there was, I remember the video. You guys did a video too. That was like sort of came out around the same time as what I guess would be like your debut album, or maybe it'd be like, I don't know if Everything You Need to Know in Hip Hop to Make It in Hip Hop. Would you call that like your debut album? I mean, not really, right? But
I'd say Good Riddance, which was
Good Riddance, of course. Yes,
that was the second one, but better produced, I guess I'd say. But and
it maybe got out there a little bit further and stuff. But there was like this movie too, or like there was a VHS that I have that came out around the time where we're out here, on the street. That like kind of feel like for me like that was like another thing that sort of it was like another solidified you guys as like your own thing too. You know what I'm talking about? It was like
when we did the video with
Is Hip Hop Dead was one of them too. But it was like a compilation as well. Right? Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. I don't mean to regale you with every specific release that you did too, but it's it's an interesting piece of the puzzle. I mean, obviously like a lot of other stuff happened, but there is this current record though I really want to talk about too because it's totally intriguing. Because you I don't know. I know that you moved out of the States a while ago, right? And you moved to Paris, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, you guys have probably been touring in Europe too, because I know there was a big fan base in France and Germany for Project Blow, but for CVE stuff for sure, right?
Yeah, the first tour I did in Europe was mainly all Germany. It was Germany and some of Austria, then France. It was just one city in France and like one show in Finland, but the rest of it was all Germany, and it was like 23 cities in Germany.
That you did?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
So how did it go? Like, was it good?
It was great, yeah.
They knew the records?
Yeah, people knew the music and the material. Dope. I was surprised that they knew it because we had never been on any major labels, anything, just stuff we put out ourselves.
Yeah, that's totally punk rock. That's the punk rock shit right there, where like they're that diehard. It doesn't matter if you're on a label or not. I mean, and when that was a while ago too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was 2000.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, because this record that came out pretty recently is very unique in some ways, and I want to figure out how you would eventually get to this place. So you did an album in Uganda, but before we get into that, I want to figure out how you could have possibly made your way there, like, because not many American artists do anything there. I've never heard of any, so but obviously when you start touring overseas, you kind of make these really unique connections depending on like where you're going and stuff, and I would think that your fans they're all pretty like diehard, like hardcore fans and stuff too.
Yeah.
How do you get there after like years of these European tours? Like,
when I was living in Paris, like the Greek guy who's into my music found out I was living there and came to me to buy a bunch of music. Like he brought his girlfriend to go shopping in Paris, and he came to see me while she went shopping.
Right.
And we had lunch, and he bought pretty much one of everything that we have.
Nice. So he wanted to cop the whole catalog.
The catalog, yeah.
Cool.
And then after I moved back to the States, that next year I went to tour Europe again, and he had me come to Greece at the end of my tour, and I did a show there. And
where were you? Where in Greece?
Athens.
Nice.
And I got to spend 5 days there.
Dope. Yeah. I've never been there. How was that?
It's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
It reminds you of California,
really?
All the colors and what grows, the fruits and stuff. It's like Mediterranean climate, I guess, which is similar. But it really kind of looked like San Diego, kind of hilly and green and
cool.
Yeah.
What was the show like? What was the audience like?
It was cool. It wasn't that big of a show, because it's not a lot of people there that know, but it was those heads who do know. And did some good radio stuff while I was there.
Oh, cool.
And I recorded a song that was produced there for no, the guys who produced it were in England, but they were friends of his too. And I recorded that Police State song, that State of the Union, which is on the West Wing album about just,
Yeah.
Because on my whole tour around Europe, everywhere I went, people in their city was commenting like how much more police they have there now.
Yeah.
Like, so it was, in me traveling through and seeing it everywhere, they may have thought it was just a local phenomenon,
Right.
but it seemed like it was happening everywhere. So
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the time I got to Greece, I made the song about it.
I think when you're overseas too, when you're in Europe and you're interacting with people, like young people at shows and stuff, especially as an American, they want to be able to tell you about that stuff too, and that it is, one, our country is totally fucked in many ways, but I mean, you see kind of in a way, this, what a crazy contrast it is when you are like overseas,
Yeah,
like,
you do.
And how much a lot of places really are in a police state in a lot of places.
Yeah, and on that tour we did a lot of shows and we stayed in anarchist squats, on the tour, and we're hearing how a lot of them are being shut down, and during that time, and it was like a real battle going on.
Who else was with you? Were you, as far as the tour, were you were any other LA dudes with you? Or?
No, I was the only LA dude. And
Wow.
I was traveling with this guy from Ohio that I do some shows with.
Oh, cool.
His name was Homeless.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty cool kid. He was a kid who grew up listening to our stuff.
Dope.
Kind of and he pretty cool style there, and he's kind of punk rock too at the same time. So
Yeah.
and it's all like DIY style, and the whole tour was like a DIY tour. But the guy from Greece, me and him became friends after spending that time together. Him and one of his other buddies, and one of them, mother is from Ohio, also one of the Greek guys, and he ended up moving back to Ohio. So the next time I was on tour, I hung out with him in Kent State. He lived in Kent, and we had a show in Kent, and we hung out there together.
Historic place.
Yeah. And then, a few years later, they called me up again, or get in touch with me online, asking if I'm interested in going to Uganda, to perform at a festival and to do a music internship.
Okay, so what's that's amazing. One. So what's the what did the internship? Were you into that, or what did that entail?
Yeah, it was mainly me working with producers that are out there, and showing them Ableton and how to use Ableton and controllers and stuff.
Yeah.
Some of the
Giving them pointers, teaching them.
Yeah.
So, but you ended
recording with some of the artists out there too.
Right. So So you did a record there. Afro Mutations is the record you did out there.
Yeah.
So how did you go about doing it? Because you recorded it while you were there. Yeah.
Yeah. The guy that's from Greece, he was there. He originally went there as a part of his studies to do music research, and he did a lot of this archiving all these field recordings that they have of different African tribes and stuff, and he had access to all that, and he gave it all to me to work on a project to see if I could come up with an album while I was there. And at night or during the day when there was nothing else doing, I just sit and spend hours making beats when the electricity was on.
How frequently would it go off?
It would sometime go off for 2 or 3 days.
Really?
Yeah, but I was there for a month, so I was able to, still get it done.
Where were you? Because were you in the capital, or?
I was right outside. Really, the capital, Kampala, is the capital, but I was kind of right outside of it in Kampala, but in the suburbs of it.
Wow. So what is that city like? How would you describe that? Because I've obviously never been there.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, it's a lot of hills. It's all hills, dirt roads for the most part. Only downtown is paved. They only have street lights downtown. There's no stop signs, no lights. Mainly all dirt roads.
Wow.
And packed with cars and people walking. Yeah.
Right. And then when you get out, it's pretty. It starts to really spread out once you get out of the city or something. I mean, even there, it's like that. But then everybody's still right on the side of the road. You're gonna see cattle, cows and chickens, and everything. And some of the houses are nice and gated. And right out down the street, you see a house that's more of a mud house, like this. What were the kids like, or the producers like? Were they open-minded and excited, or like,
yeah? Everybody there still has a smartphone and they're connected.
Right, sure.
And, and they're into music, and a lot of their music there has a dancehall influence and reggae influence to it. Though it's really big there, like.
Right.
So even the rappers they rap, but a lot of them switch back and forth from rap into like more of a Rasta style chant, and mixing it up.
Yeah. So what was the story with the with those field recordings? Like, I mean, it was all from around the country?
From all over Africa.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And a lot of stuff from Uganda too, but it was then stuff from all over Africa, from top to bottom.
Oh, amazing. And you were able to kind of chop it up, re-sequence things and re-textualize stuff, and like, is that kind of the approach, or how did you even could possibly start wrapping your head around it?
The same way I start with any other sample, really. I listen to it and see what it's saying, like, and what drums are, if there's tones in it that I could match with stuff, and like just try to see, and just play with it and see where it can go. A lot of times I like to approach music with no set concept in my head, just see what happens, like just experimental, basically.
What was it was on a little, it was on, they had a label or something, right? Or did you release that, or how did it come
No,
out?
the guys who brought me out there, I let them release it, because the festival they do is called Nege Nege, which is the irresistible urge to move.
Dope.
Is what it means, basically.
Were there any other Americans on the bill too, or?
I was the only American on the bill, but there were some English on the bill, and then there's a lot of people who spoke English from all over Africa. Right. So,
because I'm trying to visualize what the festival was like too. It was a mix of
Most
genres.
of the people that were there at the festival, a lot of them were Europeans, and there are even a few Americans there. I met a girl there who was from San Diego, actually.
Oh, no way. That's true.
Yeah. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So then what? Because that was like basically the last year or two that this record was in the works and came out. So what are you working on now? Do you have anything in the works right now?
I'm working on a new album with Fish right now that he's about to put out.
Dope.
And I'm doing lyrics on it, some production, and I have too many projects that I haven't finished yet because I had a son recently.
Oh, congratulations!
And so I've been doing that, and that's like right now it weighs everything. And once he gets a little bit older, I'll jump back on it and finish these projects that I started.
Well, that's the ultimate project there. Raising a human being is the master project. That's dope. That's amazing. Well, I mean, one, I appreciate you coming and doing this with me too. One, what people might not really realize is that it's the 4th of July. So, which is a trip. It will definitely make for a memorable. I'll remember this one, because we hooked up on it. And then I've always just been just a huge fan of your music, man, and CBE, and just the impact that you guys had on hip hop too, which is I don't think that it's a story that gets told enough. So I'm glad that we could take a little bit of time and just briefly retrace that history a little bit, because there's a lot of context there, because there's a lot of connecting things for artists that would then go on a lot of different directions too. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. This is one of the best interviews I've ever had.
Oh, that's what's up.
Ask the right questions. It seems like I start at the right places to get the right stuff out. A lot of times I don't know what to say sometimes because they don't phrase the right questions, or I have to just go off the page and just say what I want to say.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think, we've known each other for a while too, and it's funny, I didn't know if I wanted to if you would even remember this too, but, we had like this pretty memorable, fateful tour. I don't even know if I'll call it a tour, but it was sort of a tour that we did together. I didn't book it. Someone else booked it. I don't even remember the guy. I don't know if you remember this. It was me, you, Rifleman, and Circus.
I remember.
Yeah,
Nick from fucking Minnesota.
Yeah. I just remember there was a lot of crazy shit went down over the course of it. And it was like, it was just a couple of days in Oregon and California. And, there's a couple mild meltdowns along the way.
There was much more with that dude Nick. He melted down all the time.
Did he? Okay, so this was just this would keep going on after that. And then I remember it was one, we got a show on Arcata one night, and it was the night of the finals, and I think the Lakers might have lost one of the games. I forgot, because this is a while ago. I think it was 2001. And somebody said something about the Lakers, the LA Cool. He didn't like that, and like there was some residual.
I remember that exactly. We're coming out of the bar. The Lakers had just won.
Did they?
They had beat the. What was that? The Golden State or something? Or
maybe
it was a team.
Remember.
It was a team from up there. Either it was it was one of the Northern Cali, the Kings. Yeah, I think it was the Kings.
I think it might have been.
Yeah, and LA Cool was like waving his Laker flag in that girl's face, and she didn't like it and spit in his face.
Oh my God, it's coming back to me. I remember because it was in Arcata. Yeah.
And then her friend kicked him in the nuts. Then he slapped her.
Oh
too.
My God. Yep. Now it's all coming back to me.
Yeah. Someone they flagged down the police.
Right. Well, you can't. I mean, that was highly disrespectful.
I couldn't blame him. Yeah, because they spit in her face, and that's why the police didn't do anything, because there was an independent witness there who said, "I saw the whole thing. She spit in his face first." You know.
Yeah.
And,
over some basketball shit. Stupid.
And the police was like, "If I take him to jail, I got to take everybody." So the ladies were like, "Okay, it's okay."
Right. Oh my God, man. Yeah. No, I remember that, and I remember. There was some other dump out that kind of happened in Oregon too, where we weren't allowed to do a show or something, and it was a weird one for sure, but a memorable one nonetheless, definitely. Yeah, and do you and Rifleman get to do stuff? Do you guys still stay in touch? Do you do work together musically?
Not much, but a few years ago, me and Pterodactyl did an album together.
Dope.
Called Gorilla Spit is the name of our group.
Oh, I gotta peep that. Yeah, I haven't heard that.
See the Storm Coming. I'll send it.
Yeah, please do.
I'll upload it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, because that connection too, I love it. I mean, I could go back and forth about those songs.
That's one of my favorite projects I've worked on recently.
Oh, nice. Gorilla Spit. Yeah, dope. Yeah. Cool. Well, dude, again, thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, for sure. Yo, I want to thank Riddlore for his time, and for y'all for listening to The House List. My name is Peter Agostin, the host and producer of the show. Every episode is engineered by CJ Stewart. Yes, I want to thank my man Joel Bain for letting me crash at his house in San Diego, and for all y'all again. Listen, Riddlore, the story is amazing, and if you haven't really discovered his music or CVEs, let's say that you're just coming up on him now from this conversation, theoretically. So CVE there's about 6 or 7 albums you can find, but you kind of have to dig for them a little bit, most of which came out in the late 90s. As far as Rid, though, he has some recent output that is definitely worth finding and discovering. And I know that you can go, he has a SoundCloud page, so shout out to all my people on SoundCloud. Please repost this rather. If you're on SoundCloud, I'm at the House List Podcast. So you can find Riddlore at RIDDLORE on SoundCloud. So there's a bunch of joints there, a lot of loosies you can find. But listen, there's a whole archive of albums out there too. And the song I'm about to play, which he mentions in our conversation, it's called State of the Union. I think he called it Police State, but check it out. It's from an album called The West Wing, which is from 2011. But like I said in the intro, Afro Mutations came out last year, and there was a couple other things that have dropped in the last couple of years too. Mixtape came out in 2015. There's The Claim from 2015. But listen, there's a gang of stuff. Try to find it, and this is the type of dude that you should be supporting too. If you're a fan of West Coast Underground, if you're on the 3rd or 5th wave of it now, he is one of the originators. And if it wasn't for him, then we might not be privy to a whole lot of other stuff just as fans. So from the overarching wave of Good Life into Project Blowed into Afterlife and Chillin' Bill and Empire, and all of its members and satellite members, Hip Hop Clan, and so on and so forth. There's just a wealth of material to discover if it's new to you. But shout out to all the true faithful fans and the ones that have been down from the beginning. And I want to give a special shout out to all the cats in Germany and Europe in general, because I do know for a fact how popular CVE was and is out there. So if you're listening from Germany or France where they did some of those early tours. Shout out to you for just keeping it going. This is like a culture where we have to pass things along, especially now that physical stuff is harder and harder to find. You can't just rely on something like YouTube or something like that. So you got to kind of seek it out, and hopefully this might be a good starting point for people that aren't hip to the whole story or his whole catalog. So there's a lot of stuff to go there. It was an incredible story, and what a cool guy. Took his time and brought his family to his newborn, and we all got to meet one another right after. And like I said, this was recorded on the 4th of July in Carlsbad, California, just north of San Diego. And I'm just grateful that we had the opportunity to do it. So I'm going to go into this joint real quick. Remember, before I go into this, please subscribe and please spread the word on this. So if you can repost it, if you copy and paste the link, just send it to a friend. Tell somebody, call someone up, text them. Be like, yo, check it out. Rid, CVE. He was on this podcast. It's called The Houseless by that guy Peter Agasson. He used to do Culturama. You remember that? They had the Good Brothers music video on one of those joints. He also did a record label called Female Fun Records, and MF Doom was on it. He has an album with Prince Paul coming out this September. Yes, on Female Fun. Check it out. Listen to this podcast. So here you go. It all goes full circle. So once again, thank you guys so much. Let's get into this joint. It's great. Seek that album out, and just follow what Rid's doing for sure and support him. All right, y'all. Peace, and thank you so much.
But now, fucking pigs have established an almost international police state all on computer.
Los Angeles Police State. Athens Police State. Paris Police State. New York Police State. Los Angeles Police State. Athens Police State. Paris Police State. New York Police State. London Police State. Berlin Police State. Istanbul Police State. All around the world they're trying to make one great police state. Get peeped by the cops, fired by the cops, harassed by the cops, when you stopped by the cops, getting cuffed by the cops, had enough for the cops, see the hip-hop plan still fuck the cop. From the crowd when they curse cop, fuck the cop, stuck a cop. I could be anything but a cop, I could be a cop, but I'd rather watch them drive. Too many cops anymore, there's too many, still the numbers increase right in the city. They're just here to protect and serve. Yeah right, how the fuck you gon' convince me? For years I've been the enemy of the state who paid the penalties in penitentiaries for centuries just for having a pinch of weed. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They bombard our sensory and make our fears increase. To think we need so much police force. The streets on the streets for some not to sleep in the streets, force them to find a place to hide. What you cannot control, you criminalize. Corporations to criminalize. The politicians get to their side, they took over globally. While the people fell asleep in the night, I seek and settle. When hear rappers brag about what they got, I'm tripping off these cameras and increasing traffic stops. Los Angeles Police State. Athens Police State. All around the world they're trying to make one great police state. Paris Police State. New York Police State. All around the world they're trying to make one great police state. Police state, state police. All numbers to multiply and increase. The army of the beast, set free to devour your youth. Watch out for